Joining us now for an in-depth look at what Cardinal Pell's acquittal means for him and for the Vatican is the editor-in-chief of Crux, John Allen. And John, now that he's freed from prison after more than a year, what's next for Cardinal Pell?
Well, immediately, he may be facing additional legal challenges. The lawyer who represented the accuser in this case has told Australian media that she has at least 8, possibly more, other alleged victims who are planning to come forward to file claims against Cardinal Pell. It is also possible the accuser in this case may file a civil action. So his legal odyssey may not yet be over. But I think the fundamental thing is that he is a free man, and knowing George Pell as I do, he is not one to sit around and twiddle his thumbs. I would imagine that he will want to resume playing some kind of leadership role in the church. Of course, he no longer has a gig in the Vatican. I think it is unlikely, probably, he will return to Rome. My guess would be that he will remain in Australia, but I would expect him to write and speak and continue being a point of reference as he always has been.
So what does the Vatican do now about him? The Holy See had been waiting for the appeals in Australia to conclude. Could the church launch its own investigation?
Well, the first thing the Vatican does is breathe an enormous sigh of relief because two things are true about this situation. One is that I don't really know anyone in the Vatican who believed that George Pell was actually guilty of these charges. Now, there are certainly plenty of people in the Vatican who have their own reasons for maybe not liking George Pell or not agreeing with him on a number of issues. But when they drill down in the details of these charges, anyone who knows the Catholic Church would just find them highly implausible. I mean, you're supposed to believe that a archbishop in his own cathedral on a Sunday split off with no explanation from the closing procession of a mass, went into a highly trafficked sacristy where there was no one except these 2 choir boys. In a matter of minutes, without removing his liturgical vestments, managed to sexually abuse them, and then went back outside the cathedral to greet people as they were leaving as if nothing had happened. Any one of those things doesn't pass the smell test. Together, I don't know anyone who took them seriously. The Vatican also understands that it is in a very weak position to be the one to say that out loud, because were it to go first, so to speak, inevitably it would look like the clerical club taking care of its own.
Right. And before the charges were filed, there seems to be growing friction between him and others at the Vatican. Will that have any role in determining the Cardinal's future?
Truth of it is, George Pell has always been a bit of a bull in a china shop. He came in, tried to sort of take a flamethrower to existing practices in the Vatican. A lot of people did not exactly appreciate it. By the time these charges were filed in the summer of 2017, he had already lost a number of internal power struggles. It was clear that his star had dimmed. That calculus does not change by this verdict. It's not as if George Pell magically goes back to February of 2014 when Pope Francis appointed him to that role. I think he goes back to the man who I think was already on the outs in terms of how important he was in the Vatican.
And the church continues to mount a vigorous worldwide campaign to protect young people and the vulnerable from clerical abuse. Does today's decision impact that at all?
No, the Vatican in its statement today welcoming the acquittal of Cardinal Pell also insisted that its commitment to protecting children and to prosecuting abusers remains undimmed. I think the takeaway here is different. I think the takeaway here is you don't remedy one injustice with another, or to put it more simply, 2 wrongs don't make a right. I think the principle at stake here is that if we are going to stand for justice, then justice has to be across the board. It has to apply both to those people who actually were abused, but it also means that in those instances where you have a cleric, whether he's a cardinal or a simple parish priest, if he has been unjustly accused, then that wrong has to be remedied as well. I think that's the position the Vatican is trying to take.
Okay. John Allen, editor-in-chief of Crux, thanks for joining us today.
You're very welcome.
If you're watching Currents News on YouTube, be sure to hit the subscribe button and then click on the bell to get instant updates about all of our newest content, because we are putting your faith in the news.